You all right? Sir? No one should eat alone on Christmas. The voice was warm, southern, and soft enough to cut through the cold silence around him. Ethan Caldwell looked up, startled from his thoughts. A waitress, black, mid-30s maybe, stood with a worn notepad in one hand and a carafe of coffee in the other. Her eyes were gentle, lined with tiredness, but sincere. Her name tag read, Janelle. The red ink had faded from years of wear. Ethan cleared his throat. I'm fine. Just needed somewhere quiet. We're gonna. Janelle gave a small nod, not prying. Can I warm up your coffee? Sure. With Fergie. She refilled his cup with practiced ease, her movements graceful despite the fatigue she tried to hide. Before walking away, she hesitated, glanced at the empty seat across from him. If you change your mind about company, she said softly. I'm on my last shift of the night. To Wagen's offer us. Ethan offered the briefest smile, more out of politeness than warmth, and watched her retreat behind the counter. He had chosen this diner because no one would recognize him here. He sipped the coffee, bitter and slightly burnt, the kind that stuck to your throat like old memories. Janelle was back behind the counter, wiping it down with long, circular motions. Occasionally, she glanced toward the kitchen window, and once, subtly, behind the swinging door. Her movements became slower, more distracted. The thought of her 12, stubborn, and suddenly distant twisted something in his gut. He hadn't seen her since Thanksgiving. The last conversation had ended in a click and a cold voicemail box. From his seat, he could see part of the kitchen through the order window. As he glanced over, a small movement caught his eye. Tucked in the back, mostly hidden from view, was a little girl, tiny, bundled in a threadbare jacket, her braids tied with mismatched beads. She sat cross-legged on a milk crate, coloring quietly on a paper placemat with a single crayon. Janelle slipped through the kitchen door and crouched beside her. She pulled a napkin-wrapped bundle from her apron and carefully unwrapped a half-eaten sandwich, cut clean across. She whispered something only the girl could hear, then tucked a hand against her daughter's cheek. Ethan froze, caught off guard by how tender the moment was. Janelle kissed her daughter's forehead and brushed crumbs from the child's chin. It was ordinary. It was everything. The kind of care that should have been private, sacred, and yet, here it was, unfolding in a greasy diner kitchen under flickering fluorescent lights. He swallowed hard. His hand drifted unconsciously to his wallet where a worn photo of Lana still lived, folded into the back sleeve. The ache that surfaced in his chest wasn't just guilt, it was longing, raw and sharp. How long had it been since he tucked Lana in, or wiped ketchup from her cheek? Years, probably. And now, all she wanted from him was space. Then the kitchen door swung wide. Janelle, the sharp voice rang across the diner like a slap. A heavy-set man in his 40s stomped out, eyes wild, face flushed red. He wore a grease-stained tie and a name tag that read, Chuck, manager. Janelle straightened. Mr. Fields. What the hell do you think you're doing? Chuck hissed, loud enough for the few customers to hear. You're feeding a kid with customer leftovers? Are you trying to shut this place down? Janelle's face flushed. She's my daughter. Sir. She hasn't eaten since lunch. It was food we were about to toss. Ethan sat up straighter in his booth, watching as the scene unfolded with rising discomfort. Chuck stepped closer, jabbing a finger toward the kitchen. This isn't a shelter. You don't bring strays in here. Health code says, she's not a stray. Janelle barked, her voice breaking. She's 6, and quiet. She hasn't bothered anyone. I really won. Yeah? Well, she's not supposed to be here. And now you're stealing food? You want me to report that? She's my baby, Janelle whispered, clutching her apron. What would you do if it were your child? Chuck's face twisted cruelly. I'd have enough self-respect not to drag my kid into my mess. He started toward the kitchen, muttering, I'm getting that little brat out of here. Janelle moved fast, stepping in front of him, arms wide. You stay away from her, she snapped. I told you. Chuck pushed past her shoulder. Janelle stumbled on the wet tile, Her foot slipped, and she went down hard elbow first, the crack audible as it hit the floor. She cried out, clutching her arm. Ethan was on his feet before he realized he'd moved. "That's enough," he said, voice low but steady, cutting through the tension like a blade. Chuck turned. "And who the hell are?" Ethan stepped forward, calm but commanding. "The man whose dinner you just ruined. It's Stage." He helped Janelle up slowly, careful with her arm. "You all right?" he asked. She winced but nodded. Her eyes glistened not just from pain, but from shame and fury. Amara peeked through the kitchen door, her face pale. "Mommy?" Janelle forced a smile. "It's okay. Baby, stay there." "Wha?" Chuck snorted. "This ain't your business." "Aye, it is now," Ethan said, pulling a sleek card from his coat pocket. "You can call my office if you have something else to say." "Aye." Chuck glanced at the card and his eyes widened. Ethan Caldwell, CEO, tech billionaire. Regular headline on business columns. His mouth opened and closed like a fish, but no words came out. Janelle stared at Ethan, confused. "Let me take you both out of here," Ethan said softly. "You shouldn't have to fight for your child in a place like this." Reason. Janelle looked back at Chuck, then toward the trembling girl in the kitchen. Finally, she nodded, and Ethan, for the first time in years, felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. If this moment moved you, tap like and drop your city in the comments. You might find someone watching near you. The bell above the diner door jingled as it closed behind them, muffling the last muttered curses of Chuck, the manager, who now wisely stayed behind the counter, his eyes wide with the recognition of who Ethan was. The snow outside had thickened. It floated gently across the windshield of Ethan's parked car, covering the rooftops like powdered sugar. The streetlights cast a soft golden glow, giving the otherwise empty road a quiet beauty. It was almost midnight. Ethan opened the passenger door for Janelle, who cradled her bruised arm protectively. She looked at him warily, then glanced back toward the diner. Her daughter clutched the edge of her coat with small hands. "I still don't know why you're doing this," Janelle murmured. "You don't owe us anything." End quote. "I know," Ethan replied gently. "That's kind of the point." Wisdom. He helped Amara into the back seat and buckled her in carefully. The girl stared at him with wide, curious eyes, but didn't say a word. Ethan rounded the car and got behind the wheel. "Anywhere you'd like to go?" he asked as the engine purred to life. Janelle hesitated. "There's a late-night pancake place on Arlington Street. They don't mind kids. And the coffee's decent." "Artisan. Pancakes it is." Everyone. As they drove, silence fell, interrupted only by the faint hum of the heater and the occasional slap of tires over snowy patches. Ethan caught glances of Janelle through the corner of his eye, her jaw tight, her posture tense. She was someone used to holding herself together, no matter how close she was to breaking. Amara, in contrast, had dozed off, her cheek pressed against the window. "I'm sorry about what happened back there," Ethan said quietly. "He had no right to put his hands on you, or speak to you that way." "He's knowing," Janelle gave a short, dry laugh. "He's been waiting for an excuse. You'd be surprised how many people think being broke is a moral failure." He didn't answer right away. The words struck him harder than he expected. "I know something about failure," he finally said. "Just not the kind people see." Janelle turned to him, her expression unreadable. "You don't strike me as someone who's missed many meals." No," he admitted. "But I've missed birthdays, recitals, phone calls that mattered. My daughter lives with her mother now. She doesn't answer when I call." "It is so." There was a long pause. Then Janelle whispered, "I'm sorry." "Well," he nodded once. The pain didn't need elaboration. She understood it instinctively. They pulled into the nearly empty lot of the pancake house. Inside, it was warmer than expected. Bright booths, laminated menus, Christmas lights still strung across the windows. A college-age server in a Santa hat greeted them without judgment or hesitation and led them to a booth in the back. Ethan slid in across from Janelle, who gently lowered Amara beside her. The girl was groggy but alert, blinking at the sudden change of scenery. "You like pancakes, sweetheart?" Ethan asked. Amara nodded sleepily. "With strawberries," reported. "She likes whipped cream too," Janelle added with a soft smile, brushing her daughter's cheek. Ethan ordered 3 stacks of pancakes, 2 hot chocolates, and a coffee. As they waited, he leaned back and watched the quiet way Janelle ran her fingers through Amara's hair, gently untangling knots. Her movements were slow, instinctive, maternal. It wasn't just care. It was worship, and Ethan couldn't look away. "She was born in October," Janelle said suddenly, not looking up. "I was 23. Her father left before she was born. My mama said it would break me, but it didn't." "Well, you raised her on your own?" Janelle nodded. "Worked nights, cleaned offices, took online classes when she slept. She's everything I've got." Eyes. The food arrived, steaming and sweet. Amara's eyes lit up, and she dug in with small, eager bites. Ethan watched her with a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Thank you," Janelle said, voice quieter now. "I didn't mean for you to get involved back there. I've dealt with worse. I won. No one should have to weigh," Ethan replied. "Especially not someone just trying to feed her kid." "It's starting." Janelle lowered her gaze. "That's the thing, isn't it? We're all just trying. But it's like the world keeps its knee on your neck and calls it order." Well, guide, Ethan felt that one. Not the literal weight, perhaps, but he knew about systems. And how many were built to protect the powerful and bury the rest. "My daughter's name is Lana," he said. "She's 12. Smart. Stubborn. She loves math. Hates carrots. And won't talk to me anymore." "COVID. What happened?" "I work too much. I put my company before my family. Her mother warned me. I didn't listen. Now she doesn't return my calls." "Is start." Janelle sipped her coffee slowly. "Kids don't stop loving us. They just stop showing it when they think we've stopped choosing them." "I do a ribble of end." Ethan stared at her. The words settled deep, where the guilt lived. Amara, meanwhile, held up a pancake shaped like a snowman. "Look," she said proudly. Ethan smiled. "That's some serious culinary art." "Oh, you can have it if you want," she offered sweetly. "No," he said, touched. "It's yours. But thank you." "And we." Janelle watched the exchange. Her eyes, for the first time, softened toward him, not with suspicion, but something like trust. Tentative, but real. They sat there longer than expected. When the check came, Ethan waved it away. Janelle protested once, then let it go. "I don't know what your world looks like," she said as they walked to the car. "But I imagine it doesn't involve diners and single moms very often." "I go." "No," he admitted. "But maybe it should." "I have too." She looked at him. Truly looked this time. "Why now? Why tonight?" He paused before answering. "Because for the first time in years, I saw someone treat their child the way I should have treated mine, and I needed to be reminded what that looked like." "Raid." Janelle blinked, surprised. Ethan opened the car door for her and Amara, then climbed in. As they drove into the snowy night, something unspoken passed between them. It wasn't charity, and it wasn't pity. It was recognition, of pain, of sacrifice, of love buried in places the world refused to look. And for the first time in a long while, Ethan Caldwell felt less alone. Snow fell in soft waves across the windshield as Ethan pulled into a quiet street nestled in the older part of Boston, where row houses leaned into each other like neighbors sharing stories. The hour had passed midnight, and the world outside was still quiet in the way only Christmas Eve could be, the kind of quiet that carried weight. In the back seat, Amara was asleep again, her head resting against her mother's arm. Janelle reached back gently to steady her daughter, then looked at Ethan. "This is us," she said quietly, nodding toward a narrow brick building. "Second floor. Left window. 35-2. Ethan parked by the curb. For a moment, neither of them moved. Inside the car, The heater hummed, casting warmth over the silence. Ethan stared at the building, then at Janelle. "Can I walk you up?" She hesitated, not out of fear, but uncertainty. "I don't normally say yes to offers like that. I don't normally make them," Ethan replied. Something about his voice, gentle but steady, made her nod. They moved carefully, Janelle carrying her sleeping child while Ethan carried the small bag of leftovers. The stairwell was narrow and creaked underfoot. On the second floor, Janelle fished out her keys and unlocked the door to a small apartment. It was modest, but clean. A narrow couch sat beneath a window dusted with frost. An artificial tree glowed in the corner, no taller than 4 feet, decorated with paper stars and candy canes made from pipe cleaners. One single present sat beneath it, wrapped in comics, taped with care. Ethan stepped inside slowly, almost reverently. "This is nice," he said softly. "It's enough," Janelle replied. "We've had less comedy." She carried Amara to a mattress tucked in a corner of the room, surrounded by plush toys and handmade drawings taped to the wall. Carefully, she laid the little girl down, removing her shoes and tucking a fleece blanket around her. Ethan stood in the middle of the room, feeling like an intruder in a sacred space. There was something unshakably intimate about seeing where someone lived, where they dreamed, where they worried about rent and reheated meals and the winter coat lasting 1 more year. He turned toward the window and noticed a small sketch pinned beside it, a crayon drawing of a woman, a little girl, and a dog, maybe a rabbit. It was crude, but cheerful. Janelle returned quietly, rubbing her arm where the bruise was beginning to bloom. "Let me take a look at that," Ethan offered, stepping closer. "I'll be fine," she said. "I know, but let me. Anyway, Deviner." She didn't argue. He helped her roll up her sleeve, revealing purpling skin near her elbow. He winced. Her jaw tightened. "There's a first aid kit in the kitchen," she said. Ethan nodded and returned with it, applying antiseptic and wrapping the area with care. "You're surprisingly good at this," she said, watching him. "I've had a few run-ins with office furniture and bad luck," he replied with a small smile. The moment hung there, fragile and unexpected. He didn't want to leave. And for once, she didn't seem in a hurry to ask him to. "You want some tea?" Janelle asked. "It's cheap stuff, but it's warm. It is maca tens. I'd like that." Was why, in the kitchen, a narrow galley barely wider than his arms, she set a pot to boil. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, watching her move. "I don't usually have men here," she said without turning. "Especially not billionaires. I don't usually spend Christmas with strangers," he replied. "Especially not ones who make me feel more human than my own boardroom." "It is a not." Janelle glanced over her shoulder. "Is that a compliment?" "Absolutely." End quote. They shared a quiet laugh. It wasn't flirty. It was something gentler, 2 people who had worn the same weight in different forms. Recognizing that weight in one another, she handed him a mug. The tea was weak, but warm. "Do you miss her?" Janelle asked. "Every day," Ethan said without hesitation. Janelle nodded slowly. "Amara's never had a dad. Sometimes she asks what it's like. I never know what to say." "We do. Tell her the truth," he said softly. "That sometimes, even the people who love you most can still leave. And it doesn't mean it was your fault. With US stability will doesn't." She looked at him then, truly looked through him. "Almost. I think you're trying to make things right," she said. "I'm trying to remember what right even looks like," he answered. They sat for a long moment, sipping tea, while the tiny lights of the paper star tree blinked in the corner. Eventually, Ethan stood. "I should let you rest." Janelle nodded, setting her mug down. "Thank you. For everything." "I would nodded." As he reached the door, Amara's sleepy voice called out from behind the curtain. "Mr. Ethan?" He turned. "Yeah. Sweetheart? Can you come back tomorrow?" Janelle's eyes widened slightly. Ethan looked at her, waiting for her reaction. She offered a quiet nod. "If it's okay with your mom," he said, smiling. Amara smiled back before curling beneath her blanket. Ethan stepped into the hall. Janelle followed, pulling the door gently behind her. "I meant it," he said. "You shouldn't have to hide your daughter to feed her. Is wanna die?" Janelle's voice was quiet. "The world's not always kind to mothers like me." "Aye, then maybe it's time someone else showed up." "Aye." She looked at him one last time. The hallway dim, the air between them charged with something unspoken. "Good night, Ethan." "Aye, good night, Janelle." The door closed softly behind him, and Ethan, walking down the creaky steps, felt like he'd just left a place far more valuable than anything his wealth had ever bought. The next evening, Ethan found himself staring at the small diner's faded sign from behind the wheel of his black SUV. He hadn't planned on returning, not really. But the look in Amara's eyes when she asked him to come back had lingered in his mind like a melody he couldn't shake. It had been decades since someone looked at him with that kind of open hope. He checked the time, 10:42 p.m. The diner would be closing in less than an hour. Still, the lights were on, flickering slightly as if unsure whether to hold on or give up. He took a breath, stepped out, and entered. Chuck wasn't there tonight. A different server greeted him with a tired nod. Ethan gave a slight smile, scanning the space until he saw Janelle at the far end, cleaning tables. She hadn't seen him yet. He made his way to his usual booth, the same one where he'd first noticed her, and waited. When Janelle finally spotted him, she paused, the rag in her hand frozen mid-swipe. Her face flickered with something unreadable surprise, maybe, or worry. But then, it softened. "I didn't think you'd actually come," she said as she approached, wiping her hands on her apron. Ethan gave a small shrug. "I figured someone should eat dinner with you tonight." "Aye." She arched an eyebrow. "You planning to eat at nearly 11 at night? I was hoping you'd join me. After your shift." Quote, Janelle glanced around. Only one table remained occupied, and they were already stacking their plates. "I finish in 20. Then I'll wait." 20 minutes passed in a quiet rhythm. Janelle moved like someone who was used to being invisible, efficient, unassuming. But tonight, there was a slight lightness to her steps. Maybe it was the promise of not ending another long shift alone. When the last customer left, she slipped into the booth across from Ethan, still wearing her apron. "I didn't change," she said, apologetic. "You look fine." IFD. A new waitress brought them 2 mugs of coffee and a plate of fries on the house. She whispered, with a wink at Janelle. Janelle chuckled. "She's new. Doesn't know not to give away food when the manager's not looking." "End course." Ethan grinned. "Considerate rebellion for a good cause." Is night. They sat in companionable silence for a while, sipping coffee and sharing fries as snow flurried outside the windows. The diner felt warmer than the night before. Less like a hiding place, and more like a shared space. "How's your arm?" he asked. "Still sore," Janelle said, flexing her elbow. "But better. Thanks for helping with it." "Oh, you shouldn't have to get hurt just to protect your child." "My teepers, you say that like the world agrees," she replied. "But I've seen it. Ethan, people see a black woman struggling with a kid and they assume you did something wrong. No one asks if you're trying. You can be in this." Ethan's jaw tightened. "That's not okay. I would his friend." Janelle looked at him. "You mean that?" I do. It is on." She studied him for a long moment. "You know, last night, when you stood up to Chuck, I expected you to walk out after. Rich men don't stay. It is no. Maybe I'm not the right kind of rich," he said. "Or maybe you're the kind that remembers what it feels like to be poor in other ways." Ethan didn't answer. Her words hit too close. "How's Amara?" he asked instead. "She woke up this morning asking what kind of car you drive," Janelle said, laughing. "I told her. The kind that'll never fit in our parking spot." "Ode," Ethan smiled. "She's something else." She is. She makes everything make sense, even when nothing else does." Jan. A long silence passed between them. Not awkward, just full. Then Janelle leaned forward slightly. "Why'd you really come back?" I told you. Dinner is not date today. No, not the polite version. The real one. With braided. Ethan looked down at his coffee. Steam curled upward, vanishing into the air. Because when I watched you care for your daughter, he said slowly, I realized I couldn't remember the last time I showed my own child that kind of tenderness. I forgot what it looked like, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Weak cries. Janelle's face didn't change, but her eyes shone just a little. I'm not perfect, she said. I lose my temper. I mess up, but I don't quit. Not on her. I believe that, Ethan said. You made me believe again that showing up matters. The lights in the diner dimmed slightly, an automatic signal the night shift was ending. Janelle leaned back. Tomorrow's Christmas, she said. Do you have plans? She looked toward the window. I was going to let Amara open her one gift in the morning, then make pancakes. That's it. To you note, would you let me stop by? Janelle didn't answer right away. I'm not trying to buy my way into your life. Ethan added quickly. I want to bring her something. Something small. Too present. She'll probably ask if you can stay for breakfast. Janelle said softly. I'd like that. She smiled, tired but real. You want to walk us home again? Ethan stood. Always. Thanks for watching. They stepped out into the cold night. Snowflakes caught in Janelle's braids as they walked down the quiet street side by side. The only sound their shoes crunching the fresh snow. He didn't take her hand. He didn't have to. They weren't rushing toward anything, but they were no longer walking alone. Ethan stood at the corner of the narrow hallway, cradling a small box wrapped in plain silver paper. He shifted his weight from foot to foot, trying not to look like a man who'd overthought every step that brought him here. The air outside had been biting, but in this second-floor apartment, it was warm, almost too warm, like the kind of heat born from old radiators and careful budgeting. Inside, the scent of cinnamon and butter floated through the air. Someone was making pancakes. He could hear Amara laughing from the other room. When the door finally creaked open, Janelle stood there in a long-sleeved tee and joggers, her braids loosely pulled back. She blinked twice as if surprised he'd really come. Then, without a word, she stepped aside and let him in. Hope I'm not too early, Ethan said, holding out the box. She looked at the gift but didn't take it right away. I told Amara she could open her present after breakfast, she said. This one's for you. It's to account it. Janelle's brows lifted slightly. She glanced at him, then took the box and set it gently on the kitchen table. You hungry? Famished. One. Good, she said with a smirk. Because these pancakes are a 2-day-old tradition. Dodd. Ethan grinned and stepped inside. The apartment looked brighter today, not because of decorations, but because it felt alive. The small Christmas tree still blinked its soft lights in the corner. A jazz version of Silent Night hummed faintly from a radio. Amara popped into view wearing oversized reindeer pajamas. Her eyes lit up when she saw him. Mr. Ethan, Merry Christmas. Amara. Weak. Look, Mommy made snowman pancakes. Oh, she held up her plate proudly, where 3 small pancakes had been stacked and dressed with chocolate chips and whipped cream. Ethan sat at the table as Janelle placed a plate in front of him. She joined them a moment later, sipping from a chipped mug labeled Haitian MOM. For a few minutes, no one spoke. They just ate, the kind of quiet that didn't need to be filled. After breakfast, Amara bounced over to the tree and retrieved the single gift wrapped in comics. She sat cross-legged on the floor and looked to her mom for approval. Janelle nodded. Go ahead. Baby. It's under dollary, with careful fingers. Amara peeled the paper back and revealed a used children's book, The Velveteen Rabbit. Its cover was faded but clean. Her eyes widened. You remembered. I told you I would, Janelle said with a soft smile. Amara opened it and hugged it to her chest. Ethan watched the moment unfold, his throat tightening. There was no mountain of presents, no camera phones recording every second, but the joy in that child's eyes was so pure. It stole his breath. Janelle stood and turned to the counter. You want some more coffee? Ethan followed her, leaving Amara absorbed in her book. You remembered her favorite book, he said. She found it at a second-hand store 3 months ago. We couldn't afford it then, so I went back last week, hoping it was still there. Was it? No, she replied. But the owner remembered her. Said a copy had come in the day before. End quote. She poured the coffee slowly. That's what I mean when I say it's not all bad. The world. Some folks still pay attention. Ethan looked at her with quiet admiration. You want to open yours? She asked, nodding at the silver box on the table. He picked it up. Sure. If I'm allowed. Janelle gave a mock sigh. Fine. But don't expect diamonds. Wilberting. Inside was a leather notebook, black. Simple. Elegant. On the inside cover was a handwritten note. To Ethan. For remembering what stories really matter. Janelle. He ran his fingers over the words. Silent. I didn't know what to get a billionaire, she said softly. But I figured maybe you needed a place to put things that don't go in spreadsheets. Is not hand. Ethan looked up, heart thudding a little harder than before. I didn't expect a gift, he admitted. Most good things are like that, she said. Amara peeked over. Do you want to stay for a while, Mr. Ethan? We're going to watch a Christmas movie next. He glanced at Janelle, silently asking permission. She nodded. We've got cocoa and a couch that squeaks when you move too much. Your choice. It's acted. Sounds perfect. And Desna's. They settled into the couch, Amara curled between them, still holding her book. The movie started. A cheerful claymation classic Ethan hadn't seen since he was a child. At one point, Amara dozed off, her head resting on Ethan's arm. Janelle looked over. You're a natural. I'm rusty, he whispered. But I'd like to get better. This not a firsting in Izetian. Outside. The snow had stopped. The streets were quiet. Inside the apartment, though, the world felt fuller, like something lost had found its way home. And for Ethan, it wasn't just Christmas. It was the first time in years he'd felt wanted. Not for his money, not for his name, but for showing up. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the thin curtains, casting a golden hue over the modest apartment. Ethan stretched carefully, conscious not to disturb the small, warm weight leaning against his side. Amara had fallen asleep again sometime during the second movie, her tiny arm draped over his like she'd done it 100 times before. Janelle, curled up on the far end of the couch with a knitted throw, was already awake though still quiet, watching them with a look somewhere between caution and contentment. You're still here, she murmured. Ethan blinked slowly. I guess I dozed off. I care as I was going to wake you. But you looked, she hesitated, peaceful. He smiled, sitting up gently. Amara stirred but didn't wake. I haven't slept that well in months, he admitted. I didn't even dream. We have an ikonet. Sometimes, peace doesn't come in quiet houses with high ceilings, she said, rising to her feet and stretching. Sometimes, it's pancakes and old furniture and people breathing beside you. Dode. Ethan nodded, pulling on his coat slowly. I should probably head out, he said, not wanting to. You don't have to rush, she replied. But I get it. It sums, man. He paused at the door, reluctant. I'd like to come back later, if that's okay. Janelle looked at him for a beat. Yeah, that's okay. Outside. The cold hit sharper. He climbed into his car. But instead of driving, he sat there in the stillness, staring at the frost gathering on the windshield. His phone buzzed, a familiar vibration he'd been dreading. Lana's mom. He hesitated, then answered. Ethan? Hey. Claire. There was a pause. She asked about you. This morning. It not rather. Ethan's heart skipped. She did? Yes. She didn't say it like she missed you. Just like she was trying to make sense of things. Said something about wanting to know why you didn't come to her math tournament last spring. It is nodded. Ethan closed his eyes, guilt slicing through him. I didn't even know she had one. 18. I sent you the flyer. Twice. Tell a report. I was in Seoul, he muttered. I know, but I thought you'd at least call. You didn't. I'd. There was a silence. Heavy and long. I want to fix this, he said finally. I don't even know how, Sal. But I want to. Claire's voice softened slightly. You want to know what might help? Show up. Not with gifts. Not with speeches. Just show up. Consistently. Oh, he exhaled. I'm trying. What is not? I hope you are. Ethan, for her sake, call her today. We're come detected. When the call ended, he sat back, phone still in hand. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent 24 hours with a stranger's child and shown her more presence than he had his own daughter in months. He started the car. Later that afternoon, Ethan returned to Janelle's apartment with a humble bag of groceries, eggs, fruit, hot chocolate mix, and some cookie cutters in the shape of stars and trees. He didn't knock this time. Instead, he texted, outside. Unless I'm crashing the party. The door opened within seconds. You didn't have to do that, Janelle said, eyeing the grocery bag. I didn't want to come empty-handed. Arj. Amara peeked out from behind her mother. Did you bring cookies? Not yet, he said. But we can make some. Edda's reeking. Yes, she squealed and disappeared into the kitchen. Janelle chuckled. She's officially adopted you as a seasonal fixture. Matt. I'm okay with that. They spent the next 2 hours making an absurd mess in the kitchen. Flour dusted the countertops. Ethan's dark sweater, and Amara's braids. Janelle guided them with expert precision, rolling, cutting, baking, while Ethan proved more enthusiastic than skilled. Still, the joy in Amara's laughter felt like absolution. While the cookies baked, Ethan stepped outside for air. He called Lana. The phone rang twice. Then a small, guarded voice answered. Yeah? Hey, it's Dad. That's the Reezer. Silence. I know I haven't been around much, and I've missed a lot. I just wanted to hear your voice today. 2. More silence. Then a faint, are you coming for New Year's? His breath caught. Do you want me to? A pause. I guess. Du minus Cajun. I'll be there, he said. And this time, I'll show up. I promise. ADS. Okay, Lana whispered. Then the line went quiet. Ethan stood still, phone still pressed to his ear. Long after the call ended, his heart pounded not out of fear, but the unfamiliar beat of hope. It wasn't fixed, but it wasn't over either. Back inside, the cookies were cooling. Janelle poured milk into mismatched mugs while Amara carefully selected the prettiest one for Ethan. She handed it to him with both hands. You have to try this one first. It's the most special. He took a bite. It was imperfect, slightly burnt on one edge. Sweet in the middle. I love it, he said honestly. Amara beamed, then turned to her mom. Can Mr. Ethan come with us to the Christmas dinner at church tomorrow? Ethan looked up. Surprised, Janelle hesitated. I'll sit in the back, he offered. No spotlight. Just there. Man bows. She studied him for a moment before nodding. All right. But only if you help carry the cornbread. 9. You got it. Everyone. Later that evening, after the dishes were done and Amara drifted into a sugar-induced nap, Janelle stood by the window, looking out at the quiet street. You called her, didn't you? She asked. Ethan nodded. Yeah. It was more than I deserved. Dang. That's the thing about grace, she said softly. It doesn't come when you earn it. It comes when you're finally ready to carry it. He looked at her, the dim glow from the streetlights casting golden lines along her cheekbones. You say things that stop time, he murmured. I say things I had to tell myself just to keep going. Ethan stepped closer but didn't touch her. I don't want this to be temporary, he said. I don't do fairy tales, she replied. Neither do I, he said. But I'd stay for reality. If you'd let me. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence wasn't rejection. It was permission. The next day arrived crisp and blue. The city blanketed in clean snow that hadn't yet turned to slush and gray. Church bells echoed faintly from down the street. cutting through the morning chill. Ethan pulled his coat tighter as he stepped out of his car. Clutching the warm casserole dish Janelle had handed him like it was made of gold. The front steps of the old stone church bustled with families, kids in oversized coats, and volunteers carrying trays of food. Laughter and the sharp scent of nutmeg filled the air. Somewhere near the front doors, a gospel choir was warming up, harmonizing under their breath. Janelle and Amara were already there. She looked radiant, not in the way magazines defined it, but in the kind of way that made strangers look twice. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, her coat second-hand but clean and proud. Amara wore a navy dress and white stockings, bouncing on her heels when she spotted Ethan approaching. "You made it," she grinned. "I said I would. Is next time." Janelle eyed the casserole dish with amusement. "Still warm? I hope so. My car smells like cornbread now." I processed. "I'll consider that a luxury scent," she said, smirking. Inside, the fellowship hall was buzzing with preparation. Folding tables lined the walls, each covered with red and green tablecloths. Plastic ornaments and handmade paper wreaths hung from the ceiling. The crowd was mostly black families, elders exchanging hugs, teenagers rolling their eyes at their parents' selfies, and children darting under tables like wind-up toys. Ethan, for a moment, stood out, and he felt it. A wealthy white man in an old church basement wasn't exactly the norm here. Heads turned. Conversations dipped for half a second, but Janelle's arm slid gently through his, and Amara grabbed his free hand like it had always been hers. And just like that, he belonged. "You okay?" Janelle asked quietly. He nodded, just taking it in. "I'm on." A large woman with silver curls and an apron that said "bossy" as a blessing approached them with authority. "You're Janelle's friend?" she asked, eyeing Ethan from head to toe. "Yes, ma'am. And," Janelle stifled a laugh. "Well, if you're gonna eat, you're gonna serve first," the woman said. "Happy delaying. Eat talented. Good. You've got green beans energy. Table 4 needs a warm smile and a heavy hand." Unquote. Ethan grinned. "Yes, ma'am." Was not this. The next hour passed in a blur of serving spoons and small talk. Ethan, under the watchful eye of Miss Audrey, who clearly ran the kitchen like a ship, handed out cornbread and green beans, taking instructions like a soldier. But something shifted inside him. He wasn't just volunteering. He was participating. People stopped asking who he was and started saying things like, "Bless you, brother," or "You coming next Sunday?" One older gentleman even patted him on the shoulder and muttered, "We need more of your kind here. One who listens first. Take 2. Meanwhile, Janelle floated between tables, helping a pregnant woman to her seat, comforting a fussy toddler, hugging an older man with a cane. She was part of the fabric of this place. Ethan realized, not just a guest but a thread that held parts of the room together. He watched her in quiet awe. After the meal, the choir sang a soulful rendition of "O Holy Night," and Amara took Ethan's hand again. "They do this every year," she whispered, eyes wide. "It's beautiful," he replied. She nodded solemnly. "You can sit with us next time, if you want." The words meant more than she knew. Later, as the hall emptied and tables were folded away, Ethan helped carry trays back to the kitchen. Janelle met him at the doorway, brushing flour from her hands. "Not bad for your first church potluck," she teased. "I was mostly just trying not to mess up the green beans." "At it. Well, you earned an invite back." He smiled, then grew quiet. "I know this is early," he said, "and you have every right to say no, but I'd like to take you both out. Somewhere special. Dinner. Tomorrow night." "I feed." Janelle tilted her head. "Fancy dinner? Not too fancy, but somewhere with real menus and no plastic forks. And..." She looked at him for a long beat. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "I'll take that. Is Stibe." As they stepped out into the dusk, Ethan noticed something he hadn't before. Laughter came easier now. His shoulders didn't sit so high. The world didn't feel like a boardroom or a battlefield. It felt Dare he say it like community. That night, back in the apartment, Janelle pulled a fleece blanket over Amara, who had crashed hard after the long day. Her cheeks were still sticky with the remnants of a sugar cookie. Ethan stood near the window, watching snow begin to fall again. She loves you, Janelle said quietly. I know. That's what scares me. Amenafta, don't let fear make decisions, she said. Love deserves better. He turned to her. So do you. Augur. She didn't answer with words, but her eyes held something tender, wary. Still, but opening, he stepped closer, close enough to smell the faint vanilla of her lotion. I'm not perfect, he said. I never asked for perfect, she whispered. I asked for present. It's not of Reed. And in that moment, with the hum of the heater and the hush of the snow, Ethan Caldwell realized he'd been invited into something sacred. Not just a home, not just a church, but a life. The next evening, Ethan stood outside the modest apartment building again, a bouquet of winter tulips in one hand and a paper bag with Amara's favorite chocolate-covered pretzels in the other. He wore a soft navy overcoat instead of the structured suits he used to live in. And for once, he didn't feel like he was pretending to be someone else. He took a breath, then knocked. The door opened, and Janelle stood there in a simple olive dress, her natural curls pinned up with delicate care. She wasn't wearing makeup she didn't need to. Her expression held a flicker of nerves. But there was warmth, too. A quiet yes behind guarded eyes. You clean up all right, she said, smiling. So do you, Ethan replied, offering the tulips. Janelle's smile deepened as she took them. No one's brought me flowers in, well, ever. I might, he laughed. But the truth in her words landed like a stone. And, for the princess, he said, handing the pretzels to Amara, who peeked out from behind her mother's legs in polka-dot leggings and a fuzzy jacket. Her face lit up. You remembered. I'm not brave enough to forget, he said, winking. As they descended the creaky stairs, Janelle looked over her shoulder. Where are we going? You'll see. End quote. He led them to a cozy Italian restaurant tucked away in the South End brick walls. Candlelight. Soft jazz murmuring through the speakers. It was the kind of place where the waiters knew your name if you'd been once, and where dinner came with warm bread and better conversation. Amara's eyes went wide the moment they stepped in. Do people get married here? She whispered. Ethan knelt beside her. They might. But tonight, it's just for us. A round booth tucked in the corner became their little world for the evening. The waiter, Tony, gray-haired and impossibly friendly, treated Amara like a dignitary, offering her a special non-alcoholic sparkling juice in a fancy glass. I feel fancy, she said, sipping it with both hands. You look fancy, Ethan replied. The menu was handwritten. Janelle scanned it quietly, then closed it. I usually don't let people do things like this for me, she said. I'm not doing it for you, Ethan said. I'm doing it with you. God. She looked at him, something in her expression cracking open. That's a first. Dinner flowed with surprising ease. Amara told Ethan about her dreams becoming a vet, or maybe a dancer, or maybe a traveling librarian because those are real. Right? Ethan played along, asking serious questions about animal care and what kind of shoes dancers wear on airplanes. Janelle mostly listened, occasionally reaching over to tuck a napkin under Amara's collar or quietly correct her grammar. It wasn't glamorous. It was better. It was real. At one point, Amara excused herself to the restroom. When she was gone, Janelle leaned in slightly. You know this isn't forever, right? She said gently. This magic, this quiet, life gets louder, harder, and, I know, Ethan said, and I'm not someone who fits into a perfect picture. I'm still paycheck to paycheck, still dealing with a landlord who won't fix the heater. Upset. I'm not asking you to be perfect. Rethang. Then what are you asking? He hesitated, then answered simply, to keep letting me show up. To hear an eye. Janelle blinked. Her fingers brushed the edge of her water glass, then stilled. I'm scared of needing someone again, she whispered. Then let's start with wanting, Ethan said. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. Amara returned then, and the moment passed but not unnoticed. When dinner ended, Ethan insisted on dessert, warm tiramisu for the adults. Vanilla gelato with sprinkles for Amara. She offered Ethan her last spoonful. He pretended to hesitate, then took it like it was the finest delicacy in the world. On the ride home, Amara fell asleep in the back seat, her head leaning against the window, her breath fogging the glass. Janelle sat quietly beside him, her coat pulled close. She's going to remember this night, she said softly. So will I. I.P.S. They pulled up to the building, and Ethan helped carry Amara upstairs, careful not to wake her. Once inside, he laid her gently on the mattress, covered her with the fleece blanket, and stepped back, watching her for a moment. She trusts you, Janelle whispered behind him. I don't take that lightly. 18. Neither spoke for a moment. Then Ethan turned to face her. Can I see you tomorrow? Janelle hesitated. Not here, he added. Let me show you my world. Seen. She looked surprised. Your world? Not the press, not the parties, just my house, my kitchen, my past. It's time you saw who I really am. Everyone. She considered him for a long beat. All right. Tomorrow. Ethan exhaled slowly, as if something long awaited had just shifted into place. As he stepped back into the hall, Janelle called after him. Hey, Ethan? He turned. This isn't a fairy tale. I still don't believe in those. I sees. Neither do I, he said. But I believe in second chances. And maybe third. Intacts. She nodded once, then closed the door gently. In the silence that followed, Ethan felt something unexpected. Hope had stopped whispering. It had started speaking out loud. The next afternoon, Janelle stood on the long stone path leading up to Ethan's home, if that was the right word for it. Estate might have been more accurate. The mansion sat perched on a quiet hill in Brookline, shielded from the street by a wrought iron gate and a line of tall pine trees. The kind of place you'd expect to see in magazines or behind security glass, not somewhere you just walked into. She tightened Amara's hand in hers. The little girl wore her pink coat, a knit hat with a pom-pom, and a look of wide-eyed wonder. Is this a hotel? Amara asked. Janelle hesitated. No, baby. This is Mr. Ethan's house. Is Fred? Amara blinked. He lives here alone? Before Janelle could answer, the front door swung open, and Ethan stepped onto the porch in a navy sweater and dark jeans, not a trace of the suits that once seemed glued to him. His smile was wide, and maybe a little nervous. You made it, he said. Janelle arched an eyebrow. We had to. Amara thinks this might be a castle. Well, Ethan laughed. It kind of is. I will Titanic. He held the door open, and the warmth from inside greeted them, soft lighting, the scent of cedar and baked apples, and music playing somewhere in the background. Not classical, something soulful. Old Sam Cooke. Maybe. Amara stepped in first, gasping audibly as she looked up at the massive staircase. This house has 2 upstairs? Technically 3, Ethan said. Janelle followed more cautiously. She kept her coat on for a few minutes too long, as if unsure whether she was supposed to stay. Can I give you the tour? Ethan asked gently. Lead the way, she said. He walked them through the sunlit kitchen with marble counters that gleamed, a living room with a fireplace taller than Amara, and a small library with a reading nook she immediately claimed. But then Ethan paused in front of a closed door. This, he said quietly, used to be my daughter's room. Janelle's gaze flickered with understanding. She stayed here every other weekend until I missed enough that it became never competent, he added. I haven't been inside in almost a year. Workin' Dak. He opened the door. Inside was a room frozen in time, soft lavender walls, a canopy bed, a bookshelf filled with YA novels and science kits, a poster of a girl astronaut peeling from one corner. Janelle stood in the doorway, Amara leaning against her hip. It's beautiful, she said. It doesn't feel like mine anymore. Ethan admitted. You can still fix that, Janelle replied. Maybe not all of it, but some. Work now, he nodded, voice tight. That's the plan. Was a co-ed. They continued the tour. In the backyard, they found a small greenhouse, half forgotten, and a shed Ethan claimed he hadn't entered in 5 years. Amara ran circles in the snow-dusted yard while Janelle stood next to Ethan. Her coat finally unzipped. You built all this, she said, but it looks like you've been living in the guest wing of your own life. Oh, he turned to her. That's exactly it. You don't need more space, she added. You need more people. One. Ethan smiled gently. That sounds like something I'd like to change. 8. Inside. He invited them to the kitchen island while he cooked well. Assembled a charcuterie board with crackers, fruit, cheese, and kid-friendly extras like popcorn and jelly beans. Amara sat on a tall stool, swinging her feet and giggling between bites. I don't know how you do it, he said, watching Janelle peel an apple with a small knife. Quick and smooth. What? Be so steady. After everything. Eyes. She looked at him for a moment. Because I don't have the luxury to fall apart. If I crack, she cracks. Is not to a grade. He nodded solemnly. You deserve a break. Art. I'll settle for dignity. Well doin'. A pause. Then Ethan said quietly. You have that. In spades. Aye. After their small meal, Amara curled up in the library window seat with a book Ethan had pulled from the shelf just for her, an illustrated atlas filled with bright flags and landmarks. I'll be right back, she said drowsily. Though her eyes were already half shut, Janelle and Ethan returned to the living room. The fire crackled quietly, and for the first time since she'd walked into the house, Janelle let her shoulders drop. You've changed, she said suddenly. How so? You're not trying so hard. You're just here. Liked it. Ethan took a deep breath. Being around you two, it's like I remembered how to be a person again. Not a CEO. Not a divorced man trying to fix mistakes from a penthouse. Just me. Inbred. That's a good place to start, Janelle said. He looked at her, his voice lower now. Would it be too much to ask for you both to come again? Not just today, but maybe regularly? Janelle tilted her head. You asking us to be what? Exactly? Ethan didn't rush. He chose his words carefully. I'm asking for the chance to build something, with no deadlines, no expectations, just a chance. Due in 24. Janelle stared at the fire. I need time, she said. You can have it. She looked up at him then, eyes soft but steady. If you disappear even once I'm gone. Oh, I won't. Down. You're not just showing up for me, Ethan. You're showing up for her. I have today. I know, he whispered. And I want to noted. Every day. Tails. They didn't kiss. No grand gesture. Just a hand brushing against another on the armrest. Just two people letting silence speak for them. Later, as she carried a sleepy Amara back to the car, Ethan walked them out, his breath visible in the cold. Next time, he said. You pick the place. Thanks for watching. Next time, she agreed. And as they drove away, Ethan stood in the driveway, not feeling alone in that massive house for the first time in years. 2 days later, Ethan sat in the corner of a sunlit coffee shop in Back Bay, dressed in jeans and a button-down shirt that still held the faint scent of the cedar from his fireplace. His phone buzzed on the table, ignored for now, buried under a small notebook, the one Janelle had given him. On the front page, in his tidy handwriting, was a short phrase underlined twice. Show up. No speeches. No excuses. The door chimed. Janelle stepped in, her coat dusted with snow, her hair in a low twist. She spotted him instantly, offered a half smile, and made her way over. In her hand was a manila envelope and a slightly nervous look. You weren't kidding about the place being quiet, she said as she sat down. It's why I picked it. No distractions. In a beat of silence passed between them. Ethan broke it with a smile. You want coffee? I already had one, but I'll take a tea. Okay. He waved to the barista, who nodded. Janelle set the envelope on the table between them. What's that? He asked. My resume. And references. Ethan blinked. Caught off guard. For what? You said you wanted us to come around regularly, she said. That sounded like a soft offer. So, I'm making it real. If you're serious, I'd like to come work for you part-time. Flexible hours. Something honest. 18-7. He leaned back, eyebrows raised. I don't want favors. Ethan, she continued. I want work. Something that lets me take care of my daughter and my dignity. He stared at the envelope for a long moment, then opened it. Her resume was modest diner shifts, temp jobs, a brief stint at a daycare center. Nothing glamorous, but there was something solid in it. Earned. Honest. I can find something, he said softly. Not charity. A role that actually matters. Is fees good, Janelle said, her shoulders relaxing slightly. But just so you know, Ethan added, I'd be showing up for you either way. Job or no job? Peer. I know, she replied. That's why I trust you enough to ask. The barista brought the tea, setting it down gently between them. Janelle took a sip, then looked out the window. You ever think about what you'd be doing if life hadn't gone sideways? She asked. All the time, Ethan said. I thought I'd be a teacher, she said. Back when I had a plan. I loved books. Still do. But life happened. And then Amara happened. And suddenly the plan became survival. Ethan nodded slowly. I wanted to be a carpenter when I was 12. Built a bookshelf with my dad. She smiled. You any good? Terrible. He chuckled. It collapsed after 3 days. I know, but you remember the moment. Is back to battering. I do. I good man. She took another sip. Funny how the things that fall apart stick with us more than the ones that stay. Rated nodding. They sat in quiet reflection for a few moments. Then Janelle asked, Does your daughter know about us? That we've been spending time together? Not yet, Ethan admitted, but she knows I'm changing. She said my voice sounded different. Matter. Kids always know. And, he nodded. I want her to meet Amara, but I want to do it right. With designs, right takes time, Janelle said. And intention. Okay, I've got both, he replied. Outside, the snow was picking up, thick flakes twirling in the wind. Inside, the warmth between them was unmistakable now. Not just attraction, but alignment. I have an interview next week, she said after a moment. Local nonprofit. They need someone to help with youth programming. It's part-time, but it's what I used to want to do. Before this first, Ethan's smile grew. Janelle, that's incredible. I'm not counting on it, she said, but it feels good to be aiming again. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. You're more than who the world tried to reduce you to. She didn't respond immediately, but the gleam in her eyes said she heard him. As they left the shop together, Ethan offered her his arm not out of chivalry, but companionship. She took it. As they reached the sidewalk, Janelle stopped. Ethan, yeah? If you're going to keep walking with me, I need to know you're in it. Fully. Not just when it's sweet and convenient. Intuddy. He didn't flinch. I'm in it for the hard days. The awkward ones. The days when Amara's sick. Or you're tired. Or we don't have answers. 18. She studied him for a moment. Then maybe, she said, you're not just the man I met at that booth on Christmas Eve. We get, maybe not. Tuardi. They stood there, snow gathering on their shoulders, until Amara's school bus turned the corner. Janelle waved, stepping forward as her daughter bounded down the steps and into her arms. Ethan watched, heart full. Amara turned to him, beaming. Did you wait for me? He smiled. Always. I was Priam, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a line. It felt like the truth. 3 days later, Ethan's penthouse boardroom stood unusually quiet. He hadn't stepped into this room in weeks, not since his impromptu Christmas dinner alone that became the turning point of his life. But today, the view from the 37th floor felt different. It wasn't loneliness staring back at him through the glass walls, but distance from who he used to be. He was back not for business, but for something that needed closure. A thin man in his late 50s, well-dressed in the cold precision of corporate armor, entered the room. Gregory Walsh, the COO Ethan had once trusted more than family. "Didn't expect to get your call," Walsh said, removing his gloves. "I wasn't sure you'd answer," Ethan replied evenly. "You've been off the grid. The board's getting nervous." "Everyone." Ethan stood by the window, not offering a handshake. "I've been reevaluating my priorities. And yours." As 9. Walsh's jaw twitched. "If this is about Q4 projections, it's not. It's about integrity. There was a pause. Ethan stepped away from the window and dropped a folder onto the table. Inside, neatly laid out, were printed emails, flagged transactions, and a list of shell vendors linked to kickbacks. Walsh's face didn't move, but his fingers tightened. "Where did you get these?" "You got sloppy," Ethan said. "Or maybe I just stopped being blind." Walsh scoffed. "After all these years, you're going to accuse me of theft based on circumstantial. You laundered over $2.6 million through false consulting contracts. You used my name to greenlight it. Now Walsh's voice dropped. "You don't want this fight to manage." "I think I do," Ethan said calmly. "And you know what's different this time? I'm not afraid of losing. Because I finally have something worth protecting that has nothing to do with you." To get it, he slid a termination letter across the table. "Resign. Today. Quietly. I'll keep it out of the press for the sake of the company. But if I hear even a whisper that you've retaliated against anyone here, or tried to contact board members directly, I'll bury you with evidence and testimony." Walsh stared at him with the quiet fury of a man realizing the game had shifted. Ethan stared back, unwavering. In the silence, Ethan's phone buzzed. A single-word text from Janelle. "She got the job." "I did," he smiled. "Gregory saw it. You've changed." "Everybody. I've returned," Ethan replied. By the time Walsh stormed out with the folder under his arm, Ethan already had his coat on. He had somewhere more important to be. That evening, he arrived at Janelle's apartment with a small potted plant and a homemade congrats card made from Amara's crayons. The door opened before he knocked. "She starts next Monday," Janelle said, beaming. Ethan stepped in, catching Amara as she launched into his arms. "Mr. Ethan, guess what? Mommy's gonna work with kids and have her own office. I'm so proud of her," he said, kissing the top of her head. The three of them settled into the couch. Janelle placed the plant on the windowsill. "I want you to know," she said, "I didn't take the job because I needed saving. I took it because I remembered what I'm capable of. With Intenal Dida, I know that," Ethan said. "I didn't come here to rescue anyone, just to walk beside you while you rescue yourself." "It is ace." She looked at him, something unspoken passing between them. "I handled some unfinished business today," Ethan added. "Someone I used to trust turned out to be exactly who you warned me about. It's done now. I'm sorry," Janelle said quietly. "I'm not," Ethan replied. "I needed to see who was really in my corner. I will. A knock at the door interrupted them. Janelle frowned. "I'm not expecting anyone." She opened the door to find a tall woman in her mid-30s, sharply dressed and clearly uncomfortable. She clutched a small purse and shifted her weight. "Ethan?" He stood, confused. "Maggie?" Janelle stepped aside instinctively. Maggie swallowed. "I'm Lana's stepmother. Claire asked me to come." I am. Janelle tensed slightly, but said nothing. "She wanted me to tell you. Lana wants to come see you. Alone. She says she's ready, but she wants to meet the people in your life first, especially the ones who've changed you." Then, Ethan's eyes widened, and his throat tightened. Janelle looked over at him. reading the emotion on his face. "She said that?" he whispered. "She did," Maggie said. "But only if you're serious. About being in her life again. Not half in. Not seasonal. Always." I am," Ethan said, his voice firm. "I swear I am." Maggie looked at Janelle. "And you're part of that?" Janelle met her gaze without flinching. "I'm not going anywhere." Maggie gave a small nod. "All right then. Let's do this the right way." End quote. As she left, Janelle closed the door and turned to Ethan. "You okay?" He exhaled. "I think I'm about to find out what kind of father I still have a chance to be." End quote. Janelle crossed the room and took his hand. "You're not who you were," she said. "And she's about to see that. It's not a belt." And for the first time since Lana was born, Ethan believed it too. Ethan stood outside the modest cafe in Cambridge, his breath misting in the cold air, hands tucked deep into the pockets of his wool coat. The sky was overcast. Not quite snowing. Not quite raining, the kind of day that matched his nerves. It had been over a year since he'd seen Lana in person. Even longer since they'd spoken without tension. He checked his watch again. 4:27 p.m. Janelle had offered to come with him, to sit nearby if he needed backup, but he had declined. This was something he needed to face alone, no entourage. No excuses. Just a father trying to reclaim the one thing that once mattered more than all his billions, his daughter. The cafe door opened, and a girl stepped out of a rideshare car and walked toward the entrance. Lana, 15 now, taller than he remembered. She wore a denim jacket layered over a hoodie, earbuds dangling around her neck. She spotted him instantly, paused, and then walked up with a guarded expression. "Hey," she said. Ethan straightened. "Hi, sweetheart." Iden sewed. She flinched just slightly at the word sweetheart but didn't correct him. "Wanna go in?" he asked. She shrugged. "Sure," I said. They sat by the window. The same seat Ethan had taken a week earlier with Janelle. The irony wasn't lost on him. The waitress came by, and Lana ordered a chai latte without looking up. Ethan ordered nothing. There was a long pause before she spoke again. "So, you have a girlfriend now?" Ethan smiled gently. "That's one way to put it. With comes to market. She nice?" "She's extraordinary." She have kids?" "A daughter. Amara. She's 7. Lana stirred her drink with her straw. "So you're like, playing house with some new family?" Her words weren't cruel, just cautious. Ethan leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Lana, I'm not replacing anything. I'm trying to fix what I let fall apart. I let too many meetings, too many miles, too many excuses get in the way of being your dad. That's on me, but I'm here now. And I'm not going anywhere." "Oh," Lana looked out the window. "You missed my robotics competition." I know. And my birthday." "I'm not." "I know." "Oh, go." She turned back. "So why now?" "Because I finally saw what it means to show up. I saw it in Janelle, in the way she parents, in the way Amara looks at her, and I realized what I've been too blind and too proud to admit." 18. Lana raised an eyebrow. "That I was wrong," Ethan said. "And I want to do better. With no speeches. Just actions. One visit at a time. One call at a time. One ride to robotics. If you'll let me," I said. She studied him. Arms folded. "You're still rich, right?" Ethan laughed despite himself. "Yeah." Added. "So you're not trying to buy your way back?" "No," he said. "I'm not here with plane tickets or promises. Just me." Eddie won. Lana took a sip of her chai. "So, Amara, what's she like?" "Brilliant. Funny. Way too obsessed with sprinkles. She thinks this world's still full of magic." Lana cracked the smallest smile. "Sounds annoying." 85. "She's not. She's a reminder that I still have time to be better." They sat in silence for a while, the kind that didn't need to be filled. Then Lana asked, softly, "Do you love her?" Ethan looked at her carefully. "Yes." "Teneries." Lana nodded. Then I want to meet her. To my God. Ethan blinked. You do? I want to know what kind of people are changing you. Ethan's voice was thick when he replied. Okay. Yeah. We'll set something up. On your terms. Lana looked down at her cup. One more thing. With 39, anything. I don't need a hero. I just need a dad. With entailment, succeeded. He swallowed hard. You've got one. From now on. Oh, they finished their drinks. When they stood, Ethan didn't ask for a hug, but Lana leaned in just slightly, bumping her shoulder against his as they stepped outside. I'll text you, she said. Not a lot. Just sometimes. I do it. That's more than enough, Ethan said. That night, back at Janelle's apartment, Amara was asleep on the couch again, her hand still gripping a crayon and a page halfway colored. Janelle looked up as Ethan walked in, his cheeks flushed from the cold, but his eyes alive in a way she hadn't seen before. She came, he said. Janelle's expression softened. And she wants to meet you both. I am. Janelle nodded slowly, eyes lowering. You ready for that? I think I've never been more ready for anything. He crossed the room and sat beside her. She said something today, he added, that she doesn't need a hero, just a dad. It's minus in Telvis. And you? I don't need saving either, he said. But I think I've finally found a reason to stay saved. Janelle turned to face him fully. No more disappearing? Never. Idingus rebius stia. No more half in? Full in. With both feet. She studied him for a long moment, then reached out, her hand covering his. Then we'll meet her together. They sat there, quiet and strong. 3 lives. Once broken, now beginning to stitch together. The following Saturday morning was bright and cold. The kind of clear winter day that promised something new. Inside a small cafe near the river-neutral territory. Chosen carefully, Ethan sat at a round table flanked by 2 girls. One from his past, one from his present. Lana, in her black hoodie and combat boots, sat with her arms folded and eyes alert. She had brought a guarded calm, a teenager's version of emotional armor. Across from her, Amara fidgeted in her little corduroy dress, nervously cradling a cup of hot cocoa with whipped cream nearly taller than her face. Janelle sat beside Amara, calm but vigilant, reading the temperature of the room like a seasoned mother who knew exactly when to intervene and when to let things unfold. Ethan had rehearsed a dozen ways to start this. None of them felt right. Then Amara broke the silence. Hi. Do you like animals? Lana blinked, startled. Sure. I want to be a vet, or a marine biologist, or maybe a librarian who travels with sea animals. Is that a thing? Ethan held his breath. Lana tilted her head. I don't know, but if it's not, it should be. Well, note, Amara grinned, cocoa mustache forming. Right? And just like that, the ice cracked. Ethan exchanged a subtle glance with Janelle. She didn't smile, but she gave him the tiniest nod of approval. This was how healing began. Over the next hour, the conversation zigzagged from favorite movies to weird cafeteria food, to the time Ethan tried to skateboard as a teenager and ended up with a sprained wrist and a bruised ego. Lana even laughed once. Amara clapped every time she did, delighted by her presence. But eventually, the air shifted. Lana set down her drink. So, can I ask you something? Janelle nodded. Of course. The butt of come in with create. Lana looked straight at her. What made you trust him? The question didn't come from malice, just curiosity. A wounded girl trying to make sense of someone who had let her down, now seeming to rise again in someone else's life. Janelle's voice was quiet but steady. He didn't ask me to do. He earned it. Slowly, by showing up, by not trying to fix me or rescue me, just by being there. Lana glanced at Ethan. He wasn't always there for me. I know, Janelle said, and I'd never try to erase that too. But I can tell you he's here now, for both of us, and I think for the first time in a long while, he wants to be a better man more than he wants to be right. In accordance, Lana looked down. Processing. I guess I just need to see it. Over time. Ethan reached across the table. Palm open. Not a demand. A quiet offer. Take all the time you need, he said. She looked at his hand, and after a long pause, placed hers in it. Not tightly. Not for long. But long enough. Later that day, Ethan, Janelle, and Amara returned to his house. The tension from the meeting had melted into something warmer, uncertain, but open. While Amara took a nap upstairs, Janelle stood in the kitchen, watching Ethan stir a pot of chili on the stove. You did good today, she said. So did you. Easer. Think she'll come back? I think she will. Slowly. I have a Kansas. Janelle leaned against the counter. You scared? He didn't lie. Terrified. But hopeful? He nodded. Janelle stepped closer, her voice lower now. I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop. Ethan, for you to disappear, or for this all to be temporary. Is teens. I know. We're with the Reddit. But today felt different. Oh, ma. He turned to face her fully. It is. I saw the man you used to be, and the man you are now. And I realized something. Was not a gal. What's that? They both needed love. But only one of them was willing to give it back. There was not. They stood quietly, something unspoken shimmering in the air between them. Then, from upstairs, Amara's voice floated down sleepily. Mommy? Can we stay here tonight? Janelle looked up at the ceiling, then back at Ethan. Would you want that? He asked softly. She didn't answer with words. Instead, she took his hand and for the first time, didn't let go. And in that kitchen, in the soft light of a house that used to echo with emptiness, Ethan realized he wasn't rebuilding his past. He was building something entirely new. It started with a phone call. Late Sunday evening, as Janelle and Amara settled onto the couch in Ethan's living room, blankets wrapped around them. An old Disney movie playing in the background, Ethan stepped into his study to take a call from his attorney. When he returned, something had shifted in his face. Not panic, not anger, but the kind of resolve that comes just before a storm. Janelle noticed it instantly. What happened? She asked, muting the TV. Ethan glanced at Amara, then nodded toward the hallway. Janelle followed him into the kitchen. They're coming for me, he said. Who? Gregory Walsh, the COO I forced to resign. He's leaked documents to a media outlet, twisted versions of contracts, claimed I misused company funds for personal gain flights, housing, even you. Idsi. Janelle's eyes narrowed. What? They're painting this as me hiding a personal relationship under a charitable umbrella, that I gave you work and used it to launder company resources. Is note. Janelle took a slow breath, steady but tight. Let me guess, a mysterious single mother from nowhere? Ethan nodded grimly. She crossed her arms. And this comes after you exposed him. Oh, he's retaliating. The timing's calculated. Board elections are in 3 weeks. End quote. And the press? They'll devour it. A billionaire. A black woman. A child. Impropriety. Romance. It's the perfect storm. Janelle stared at the tiled floor, jaw clenched. Do I need to worry about them showing up here? She asked. Ethan shook his head. Not unless someone tips them off. But we should lay low for a bit. She stepped back, folding her arms again. Let me be clear. Ethan, I will not be a scandal in your story. I won't have my daughter's name whispered in tabloids. I would never let that happen. You might not try. But this world, it doesn't play fair. Dan, I know. Silence filled the space between them. Then Janelle spoke, voice quieter now. Do you believe me, that I never saw you as an opportunity? Ethan stepped closer, his voice firm. I've never doubted that. Not for a second. This isn't your mess, it's mine, and I'll clean it up. But it affects us, Amara. Our future is freezing, I know, and I'll fix it before it costs us more. She studied him for a long beat, then finally gave a small nod. The next day, Ethan went into full damage control mode. He called in his PR team, his attorneys, even a retired judge he trusted. His days were spent in meetings, drafting statements, poring over timelines. But through it all, he never missed a single call or message from Janelle. Every evening, like clockwork, he returned to her apartment. No matter how wrecked or exhausted, he showed up, and Janelle noticed. She watched as he carried Amara's backpack inside, watched as he gently reminded her to brush her teeth, watched him repair the broken heater valve in the hallway with his own hands. And with each small action, her fears of being used, discarded, replaced, softened. One night, as they tucked Amara into bed, Ethan sat down beside her and held her little hand. "Hey, Bug," he said gently. "If you ever hear someone say something unkind about me, or your mom, I want you to know something." Amara blinked up at him, wide-eyed. "We're strong," he said, "and we stick together. Truth is louder than gossip, even if it takes time to be heard." 18's dahlias. Amara nodded solemnly. "Can I say something if people talk mean?" "Always," Janelle said from the doorway. "But say it with kindness, not fists." "Is AG?" Amara yawned. "Okay. Can I still be a vet and a librarian?" Ethan smiled. "You can be anything." 2. By Friday, the news broke. Headlines spread like wildfire. Billionaire's secret life, romance, nepotism, and the woman behind it all. Some were worse, more insidious. Comment sections bloomed with judgment, speculation, and coded racism. But alongside the noise, something else happened. A letter appeared in a local paper, written by a former staff member at the nonprofit where Janelle had just accepted a job. It spoke of her character, her dedication, her quiet strength. Then another letter appeared, and another, from parents whose children she had cared for, from neighbors, from volunteers who knew her story. A counter-narrative was forming, not curated by Ethan's team, but by truth-tellers who had nothing to gain. Janelle read the letters with tears in her eyes. Ethan, watching her, felt something shift in his chest. "This won't be the last time we're tested," he said. "I know, Reezer, but we passed this one. It's to wing Vidier." She looked up at him. "You didn't flinch." I had too much to lose. May dine of God." And as he pulled her into his arms, he realized the most powerful thing he could offer her wasn't wealth or protection. It was consistency, and he intended to offer it every single day from here on out. 1 week after the headlines hit, something remarkable happened. The news cycle moved on. There was a celebrity breakup, a stock market dip, a politician's scandal more tantalizing to the public than a wealthy CEO's supposed romance with a black single mother. The smear campaign lost momentum. Gregory Walsh's claims unraveled under quiet legal pressure, and the media, with no fire left to feed on, turned its attention elsewhere. But inside Ethan's world, the impact hadn't vanished, it had settled, rearranged things in subtle ways. Trust, now, wasn't a theory between him and Janelle. It had been tested, hardened, and Amara, young as she was, seemed to intuit that something had shifted. The tension had melted. Their little trio, tentative at first, had grown into a rhythm. They started having dinner together most nights, sometimes at Ethan's house, sometimes in Janelle's tiny apartment with its creaky floorboards and walls painted by hand. He didn't try to fix her world anymore. He simply belonged in it. And Lana? She kept showing up, not with fanfare, not with hugs, but she came. Sometimes with a book tucked under her arm, sometimes with questions about Ethan's childhood. Other times, she came just to sit quietly with Amara, helping her with a school project or letting her braid the ends of her dark hair. One Saturday afternoon, the 5 of them, Ethan, Janelle, Amara, Lana, and even Claire, Lana's stepmother, went ice skating on Boston Common. It was awkward at first, but it didn't stay that way. Janelle, gripping Ethan's arm for balance, laughed as he stumbled. "You said you skated in college." "I said I tried. I never said I was good." "We're two guy." Amara zipped around them in a rented helmet, fearless, and full of joy. Lana skated by with calm grace, offering occasional pointers. Claire watched it all from a bench, sipping coffee, her expression unreadable until she gave Janelle a quiet nod, a peace offering, an understanding. Later that evening, as they sipped cocoa inside the Frog Pond Cafe, Ethan looked around the table and felt something he hadn't in years: peace. Not the peace of silence, or distance, or isolation, but the kind that comes when the people around you are there because they want to be, not because of money, or status, or obligation, because of who you've become. That night, back at his house, after Lana and Claire had said goodbye, Janelle stood beside him in the foyer while Amara danced up the stairs, humming a Christmas tune out of season. Ethan turned to her. "I want to ask you something." "We have dozen." Janelle raised an eyebrow. "Don't propose. It's too early." "We thought her was Lifton," he chuckled. "Not that. Ard. Good. Because I'm not changing my last name for Chili." With quite a design, he grinned. "What if I asked you to move in?" The question lingered between them. Janelle tilted her head. "You sure?" "I'm sure about us. I don't care if it takes another year to get the logistics right. I don't want to keep saying goodbye every night." Etty. She looked up the stairs where Amara had disappeared. This would be a big change for her. And graded. "I know. That's why I want her to feel like it's her home. Too. Not something borrowed." And it was. Janelle didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked into the living room, looked around the place that once felt like a museum and now held traces of their presence. Amara's books stacked on the coffee table, a throw blanket she'd bought on impulse draped over the back of the couch, a photo Lana had taken of the three of them, framed and resting on the mantel. "It already feels like home," she said quietly. Ethan stepped up behind her. "So, is that a yes?" She turned to him, eyes warm. "Let's call it a maybe. With toothbrushes." "Is bettered," he smiled. "I'll take it." And, the next morning, Ethan woke to the sound of soft feet on hardwood. Amara, still in her pajamas, climbed onto the bed beside him. "Mr. Ethan? Do you think I can have a purple wall in my new room?" He blinked. "Half asleep. Purple? Definitely. Maybe even sparkles." "It's not ADO," Amara gasped. "You're the best," he chuckled. "Don't let your mom hear that." "Do a can. Too late." Janelle, brushing her teeth in the bathroom doorway, smiled through the foam. "Too late," she mumbled. And in that moment, with bedhead and bad breath and a house full of warmth, Ethan realized the real victory hadn't been clearing his name. It had been reclaiming his life and filling it with people who saw him for who he was becoming, not who he used to be. A week later, Ethan found himself standing in the middle of a hardware store, surrounded by more shades of purple paint than he ever thought existed. "Lavender mist, royal plum, starlight orchid," he muttered aloud, scanning the rows. "Don't forget sparkleberry." Janelle chimed in, holding a swatch with flecks of glitter. Amara, perched in the child seat of the cart, pointed to a shimmering sample. "That one, it looks like magic." Ethan smiled. "Sparkleberry it is." And they picked out brushes, rollers, and a canvas drop cloth that Amara insisted on keeping so the floor feels cozy. Janelle shook her head, amused, watching the billionaire turned hardware shopper debate between matte and satin finishes with the seriousness of a man buying a new car. Back at the house, Ethan rolled up his sleeves. "All right, ladies, let's paint a masterpiece." The side intentionee, Janelle tied Amara's curls up into a scarf and handed her a tiny brush. "Just the bottom half of the wall. Okay?" "Yes, ma'am." The project took hours. They blasted music, Amara's playlist, full of cartoon themes and happy pop songs. Paint got everywhere. Ethan's shirt was streaked with purple. Janelle had a splash across her cheek, and Amara, covered in sparkles, declared it the best day of her life. By nightfall, the room glowed with a soft, magical hue. Purple walls, white trim. One wall was decorated with handprints, Amara's idea, each signed with initials in crayon. Janelle stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching Ethan tuck Amara into her new bed. "Do you know how to read minds?" Amara asked sleepily. "Not yet," Ethan replied, smoothing her blanket. "But I can read faces. I have will it. Then you know I'm happy." "Huh?" "I do." She yawned. "I think my dreams will be purple tonight." I calibrated. He smiled and kissed her forehead. "Good night, bug." Everyone's eye would not had. As he closed the door behind him, Janelle leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. "She'll remember this forever," she whispered. "So will I," he said. Later that night, Janelle and Ethan sat on the back porch, 2 mugs of tea between them, the Boston skyline flickering in the distance. "So," Janelle began, "how does it feel to have your name cleared?" Ethan thought for a moment. Relieving, but also anticlimactic. "ICAD. Why? Because I thought that was the battle, clearing my name, getting the media off my back, but now I realize that was just noise. The real work was here, learning how to be present, trustworthy, someone worth loving. She looked over at him, her gaze soft. "You are someone worth loving." Well, he didn't reply with words. He simply reached for her hand. They sat in silence for a while. Then Ethan spoke again. "Lana texted me. I have a writing." Janelle perked up. "Yeah?" She asked if she could come over next weekend. Maybe paint her room too. Noah's 9. A smile tugged at Janelle's lips. "What color?" "Didn't say. Just asked if I'd be okay with her making it her own." "Oh, that's a good sign." "Whoa. It is." "Is for?" Janelle sipped her tea, then asked, "You nervous about her spending time with Amara again?" He shook his head. "Not anymore. She's been showing up, in her own way. I think she's starting to see that this isn't temporary." It hears eyes. Janelle looked out at the night sky. "Neither am I. It's a Bzexin." He turned to her, something deep and quiet settling in his chest. "I don't want to take this for granted," he said. "I've done that before with people. With time, but not now. Not with you. Is innocent. You don't have to say all the right things," she said. "Just keep doing the right things." "I have dairy cladded it." He nodded slowly. "Every day." Ord. Just then, Amara's sleepy voice floated from her window above them. "Mommy? Mr. Ethan?" Janelle looked up. "Yes. Baby, can we plant flowers tomorrow under my window?" Ethan cupped his hands. "What kind?" She paused. "Purple ones." Janelle laughed softly. "Of course." "Really?" And as the porch light flickered and the city hummed around them, Ethan realized that for the first time in his life, he didn't just own a home, he belonged to one. Spring came to Boston slowly, first with the melting of snow into rain, then with the quiet blooming of crocuses between sidewalks and city bricks. For Ethan, the season didn't just mean warmth, it meant renewal. Outside the house, the flower beds beneath Amara's window were taking shape, true to her promise. Janelle had brought her daughter out early one Saturday, sleeves rolled up and hands muddy. Ethan had tried to direct things, he had even hired a landscaper to help, but Amara had insisted, "No professionals, it has to be ours." With a "did you I?" And so it was. Purple tulips, lavender bushes, and tiny blue forget-me-nots lined the border. At Amara's request, they placed a small wooden sign in the soil that read, "Bug's Garden." When Lana arrived later that afternoon, she stood in the doorway, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. Her eyes scanned the house, the flower beds, and then settled on the little hand-painted sign in the dirt. "Did you make this?" she asked Amara. "I helped. I even got to dig." Lana smiled faintly. "It's cute. You want to see my room?" Ethan held his breath, but Lana nodded. "Sure." With Jock, the girls disappeared upstairs, leaving Janelle and Ethan in the kitchen. "That looked natural," he said. "She's trying. And Amara, she doesn't hold grudges. Quote, I don't deserve either of them. Would I see?" Janelle looked at him. "Stop saying that. This isn't about what you deserve. It's about what you're building, day by day." E2. Ethan exhaled. grounding himself in her words. Later, as they all gathered for dinner, takeout pizzas, sodas, paper plates instead of china, it struck Ethan how simple joy could be. Lana sat next to Amara, letting the little girl chatter about her purple dreams. Janelle leaned against the kitchen counter, sipping wine, her laughter natural and unforced. And Ethan? He didn't feel like a host. He felt like part of it. The following evening, Ethan stood in the guest room, soon to be Lana's permanent room, rolling the first coat of pale blue across the walls. Lana had picked the color herself. Sky mist, she had said. I like the idea of waking up inside a cloud. Ease nodded distrayed. Janelle entered quietly, a bowl of fresh strawberries in her hand. She's painting the trim with me in the other room. Iz was not wanted. He turned, smiling. Think she'll stay more often? I think she's already planning a bookshelf. And, he chuckled. Setting down the roller, Janelle approached him slowly, then reached up to brush a streak of paint off his jaw. You know what I think? What? I think you're healing. Tue. He held her gaze. Because of you. Oh. She shook her head. No. Because you wanted to. I just showed you the mirror. Way. Ethan leaned in and kissed her. Soft and grateful. No rush. No agenda. Just presence. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Ethan sat alone in his study. A file sat open on his desk. Inside were the final reports from the investigation into Gregory Walsh. With the support of a few key board members, Ethan had quietly ensured Walsh would never hold executive power again, not out of revenge, but protection. A knock at the door. It was Lana. She wore one of Ethan's old hoodies, the sleeves swallowing her hands. Couldn't sleep? He asked. She hesitated. Can I sit with you? He nodded. She walked in, looking around the study, the books, the photographs, the heavy leather chair where she used to sit and spin in circles as a little girl. I remember this place, she said. It used to feel so friend. Big. Dashed. It still is, Ethan said. But maybe it's not so scary anymore? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she pointed to a framed photo on the shelf. It was an old picture of her as a toddler, on Ethan's shoulders, both of them laughing. I remember that day, she whispered. He swallowed hard. I do too. Tuot? Lana sat on the arm of his chair. I think I stopped believing in you when you stopped showing up. End quote. I know. I never won. But now, you're here. He looked at her. And I'm staying. Iz was not deado. She nodded once, then rested her head on his shoulder. They sat like that in silence. No speeches, no fixing, just father and daughter both wounded, both willing growing roots again. Outside, the wind shifted gently through the new blooms under Amara's window. The garden, young and imperfect, swayed in the night. It hadn't been professionally designed. It wasn't flawless, but it had been planted with intention, watered with second chances, and it was growing. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of Ethan's home, casting soft, golden light over the living room. The house no longer felt cavernous. It breathed, now filled with footsteps, laughter, voices, and the ordinary chaos of a life being lived. Today was Amara's birthday. Balloons floated gently from the ceiling. A string of handmade decorations stretched across the mantel, each one crafted with glitter, crayons, and more love than precision. The smell of pancakes and vanilla wafted from the kitchen, where Janelle stood in her apron, flipping batter with one hand while answering Amara's endless stream of birthday questions with the other. Ethan had tried to help, but his pancake flipping skills had been politely banned after one too many ended up on the floor. Upstairs, Lana was helping Amara get dressed in the new purple dress she had picked out for her. They had been inseparable all week, bonding not over grand gestures, but over shared space, inside jokes, and late-night whispers. Ethan watched the scene unfold from the hallway, arms folded, leaning on the doorframe. His heart felt full in a way he hadn't known it could. So, Janelle said without turning, "How's it feel?" "How's what feel?" "Having a full house, not just filled with stuff, but people, is nothing." He smiled. Feels like I finally bought the right kind of wealth. Is upreading. She turned to face him. Hands on hips. You're lucky you're good with words. Reasoned. He stepped forward. Kissed her forehead. No. I'm lucky I was wrong enough to realize how right you were. It's, by afternoon, the house was buzzing. A small group of neighbors, friends from the community center where Janelle worked, and a few of Ethan's oldest employees who'd watched his transformation with silent pride gathered to celebrate Amara. There was music, a bouncy castle out back, and even a magician Ethan hired after seeing how Amara's face lit up at a street performer months ago. At the center of it all stood the birthday girl purple dress, purple shoes, purple ribbons in her hair. She held hands with Lana as they spun in circles on the lawn, giggling like sisters born of heart, not blood. Ethan stood beside Janelle, holding her hand. She thinks this is the best day of her life, Janelle said, watching Amara twirl. She's not the only one. Ized Nisen. They didn't speak again for a while. Words weren't needed. Every moment the hugs, the laughter, the simple joy was a kind of poetry on its own. As the sun began to dip low, the guests slowly departed. Thank yous were exchanged. Hugs given. The yard emptied. The kitchen quieted. Amara, exhausted, curled up on the couch with her gifts, fast asleep under a blanket she and Lana had made together the week before. Ethan stepped outside onto the porch. Lana joined him, 2 mugs of tea in her hands. You didn't think I'd make it this far, did you? He teased. Lana smirked. Honestly, no, but you proved me wrong. Oak. He accepted the tea. Took a sip. Thanks for staying this weekend. Ease looked at Graham. I think I'll keep staying. With Frey, he looked over. Really? She nodded. Claire and I talked. We're gonna try something new. Split time. She's okay with me being here more. Says it's time I had more than just visits. I pre. A beat passed. Then Ethan whispered, I missed so many years. Would not example. Lana didn't let the guilt linger. Then don't miss the ones ahead. I queer one. That night, Ethan carried Amara up to bed. She stirred a little, murmured something about birthday cake in her sleep, and clung to his neck for a moment before settling in. He brushed a curl from her forehead and stood for a while, just watching her breathe. Then he turned, walked down the hallway, and peeked into the room beside hers, Lana's room. Her suitcase sat by the closet, a pair of sneakers on the floor, her favorite book open on the nightstand. She's staying. He made his way back downstairs, where Janelle sat on the couch in her pajamas, eyes half closed. You look tired, he said. Good tired, she replied. The kind that means something. If you arcanes, he sat beside her, pulled her close. What do we call this? He asked. Us. This life. What name do we give it? She rested her head on his shoulder. We don't need a name. ITs. But we've come so far. IB. We've come home. It's not a grand. He exhaled slowly, grounding himself in her words, in her presence. Outside, the purple flowers beneath the window swayed in the breeze, their petals open to the night sky. Inside, a family imperfect, unplanned, and entirely real rested under the same roof, no longer haunted by the past, no longer afraid of what tomorrow might bring. For in the quiet, after everything, they had learned the most profound truth of all, that love doesn't always arrive on schedule, but when it stays for good. The story teaches us that true wealth is not measured by power, status, or material success, but by the relationships